started. So it should come up as soon as I see live, I'll know to start.
Okay.
And good morning. Just wanted to welcome all our viewers here. Today we have Jamie Shepard on the Atlanta Business Network. And we just wanted to interview Jamie because one, we usually talk to companies about their reputation, but I spent 39 days in Shepherd, so I had a pleasant experience. So I said, man, I'd love to talk to Jamie about how he does it. So that's why we're here today, is to talk about just the culture, what they're doing in the community, and some general questions. So Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, Pete. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Awesome. So it was February 5th. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I had a stroke and I find myself, not at a place that I'm familiar with. So 10 days after that, I'm sitting there in a room and it was like a coming home party. It was a group of professionals that were greeting me at your place. So why do you do that? I think I know the answer, but could you explain to our viewers that experience?
Yeah. So, this our patients are going through the most difficult times in their lives, and we started because of my father's injury. He broke his neck body surfing in Brazil in 1973, and barely made it out of Brazil, and came back to Atlanta to Piedmont Hospital, and barely made it out of Piedmont, and then went out to rehab in Denver and came back. And so he experienced a lot of different facilities from the patient perspective, and my family experienced a lot of different facilities. And so when they started a hospital, they started it with that in mind, from the patient's perspective and the family's perspective, of taking some of the things they liked and trying to eliminate a lot of the things they didn't like. And so every day we tell our employees when they walk in the door that they need to leave their personal problems behind, because all these patients and families that we have here, they're experiencing the worst days of their life every day. And so it's our job to remove those barriers, remove those burdens, and try to do everything we can to give them their lives back. So that's what we try to do.
So during, I just looking at your website, I know the history behind Shepherd. How do you pass on a second generation of service? Because I mean, my experience with Shepherd, and even when I bring it up when I'm talking to my friends, they'll say, "Oh, I've heard a lot of good things about Shepherd." How do you continue a level of service and a culture into a second generation?
It's a challenge in today's environment, for sure, with the younger generation wanting to bounce around. So we've been very fortunate historically. We're coming up on our 50th birthdays, but we have a lot of very tenured employees that have been here 20, 30, 40 years. So that culture has been very heavily ingrained in them, for sure. But as we onboard people, we're very, very intentional about picking the right folks. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't fit culture wise, you're not going to last here. And so we always try to hire for fit first, and really push that intentional culture. And we have our senior managers going around to areas monthly and quarterly, checking in on staff, checking in on patients, and getting their feedback, and they're walking the walk and making sure everybody else is walking the walk too.
Yeah, I was just amazed, from the techs to the nurses to the therapists to the doctors. Every single layer or every part of the staff, I got the same kind of like personal service. I mean, they treated you like you were the only person in the hospital, so a rehab place. So it's remarkable to have that within healthcare, because I can say, compared to my time, in a WellStar facility, it was less than, the service was more, okay, well, he's here, we take care of him, but that was about it. But at Shepherd, I mean, it was overwhelmingly positive. So what do you do? So when it comes to spinal injuries and brain injuries, Where's the bulk of your patients coming from these days?
So about half our patients come from the state of Georgia. The other half come from across the southeast and even across the nation and internationally. So it's the bordering 7 states are really probably about 96% of where our patients come from. But they do
Hmm.
come from across the country and from even, like I said, internationally. And we don't have a feeder system. We don't have labor and delivery. There's no emergency room. There's nothing that are pushing patients here. They come here out of choice, and obviously they choose to because we're really good at what we do.
Yeah. What? So your mom is still involved with Shepherd to this day?
My grandmother is, yes.
Oh,
So
grandmother. Okay.
yep,
Yeah.
she is 90 plus years young and has come in every day as an unpaid volunteer for 40 years, and she's still chairman of the board and very much plugged in to what's going on here, and rounds on the floors every day, meets patients and greets them as they come in.
Yeah. I was in the gym uh, with one of the therapists, and she said, "Well, there." And she showed me your grandma. Shows she, at 90, whatever she is, she was there working
Yeah,
in the gym and just going to town and friendly as can be. So
she's a force of
I
nature.
was in. I was one time. I was in the. I guess it was the cafeteria, and it was a Sunday, and I'm there with my wife, and we're talking and stuff, and you came over and greeted us, and greeted us by name. I was going like, "Wow, isn't that personal?" So, how do you treat people? I mean, it's obvious that y'all go the extra mile, but is it that the people in the culture consider that, hey, this is what we believe and this is how we do things at Shepherd?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's definitely intentional and part of the culture. Like we're very fortunate that we get to have our patients for a long period of time during their stay. So we really get to know them, get to know their
Yeah.
family, get to see their journey from when they most of them when they come here and are not doing so well, and then like in your case when they get to walk out the door. Not everybody does, but we do have a large amount of success stories. So it's very rewarding, and our staff grow very close to the patients and their families because they're here for a long time and they get to know them really well.
Yeah, I love the team of therapists because Emily, Becca, Jen, and Sydney were like the team, and then Dr. Box. They were that team. So you build up rapport with that team. Now, that I love that concept. I think it just makes all the sense in the world. But in as comparison, I don't know how everybody does it, but I just can speak to my time at Kennestone. There was rotating people, whoever was available. You got scheduled, some good, some not so good, but we didn't have a say in really that. And not that I would have said, hey, I don't like this person, but they tend to go an extra mile and build that rapport with you. So
We
has that always been your philosophy about how you treat your patients?
Absolutely. We try to keep consistency on our teams and try to keep the same people treating everybody because they know, what's happened to you yesterday, what's happened to
Yeah,
you 2 weeks ago, what pushes you, how to motivate you and how to interact. So, it's not perfect every day from a therapist and nursing and tech perspective, but we
sure.
try to make it as best as we can.
Yep, you do well. What about when you wake up in the morning, you're going to work, what's your biggest challenge that you face at Shepherd today?
Our couple of our biggest challenges is staffing industry wide is very challenging these days. COVID saw a lot of nurses and respiratory therapists go across state lines for big contracts, and
Hmm.
a lot of these agencies are still commanding. The cost for an agency is triple what the cost for a regular nurse is. So we're very lucky we don't
Yeah,
have any agency um, for nursing here, but they've taken a lot of our nurses, and so
sure.
it's challenging to staff. The thing that keeps me up at night is the thing we have no control over, and that's just legislative changes or insurance company changes that could really affect our business with the stroke of a pen or the push of a button on a keyboard. And we always got to have to stay aware of legislation and changes in the insurance industry and what's going on and how it could affect us.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That is, I know there was one nurse that was driving from St. Mary's, Georgia, and she'd work up a couple days at Shepherd and then she'd go back home. But she said, I've not found any place that could come close. So even though I moved to a place I really enjoyed, I still wanted to continue with Shepherd. So I guess that's a pretty cool thing that somebody recognizes that. So let me talk to the viewers. We are all, you're a nonprofit and you seek out funds. So if somebody wants to support your organization, your rehab facility, would the website be the best place to go, and explain what how that is really part of, you know, the dollars that go behind Shepherd?
Absolutely. So we have over 20 programs here that are not funded at all by an insurance, and we put them on simply because we
Hmm.
think it's the right thing to do. So we raise between 12 and $15 million every year for these programs, whether it's housing, whether it's rec therapy, whether it's our share military program that treats post 9/11 veterans at no cost to themselves. We're raising money each and every day for these programs just because we think it's the right thing to do. So yeah, if someone feels compelled to support, the quickest and easiest thing is to go to the website, and there's a laundry list of links on how to give and support, whether program specific or just unrestricted.
Awesome. I read in the news that you got a nice $50 million donation. What's your plans for the future with that kind of support, and where do you want to go?
And so we have a very large capital campaign that we've been silently underway with, and probably will go public this late this September. But we're going to
Hmm.
build two new buildings. One of those buildings is a housing building, so for our families that are from out of town, they're able to stay there and be near their loved ones while they're here. We think that's very important because they really have to buy in to be able to learn to help take care of these patients because these injuries are so catastrophic, and also to be there to support them. As you know, it takes a lot of support to get through some of these injuries. So we have our housing building that'll break ground in early October. Uh, that $50 million gift from the Blank Family Foundation that you mentioned is going specifically designated to that building. So we're
Hmm.
going to use that donation for there. Bernie Marcus gave us $75 million through his foundation. That's going to go to some of the renovations here and the new building that's directly next to our campus that'll house more of our outpatient services. So we're actually going to move some of our administrative areas off our current buildings so that we can have additional inpatient units and be able to treat more patients here. So we're very, very excited about that. So a lot of growth for the hospital over the next 2 to 5 years for sure.
Awesome. Are there any plans? I mean, Pathways, I was in there with a person that I know personally that went to Pathways, and he really raved about what they were able to help him with. Is there any plans for outpatient around Atlanta, or is Pathways location the one location you're going to stay with?
So for those of you that don't know, Pathways is our post-acute brain injury program. It's in Decatur. We actually potentially part of our long-term plans may be to move Pathways over here into that new building. We're shelling out 3 additional floors in one of the new
Okay.
buildings here. So we don't plan to expand outpatient services outside. We tried a couple of decades ago up in Tennessee at a donor's request, and that didn't go very well. The incidence rate of a lot of these injuries is very small, and so
Okay.
we've tried to concentrate everybody at the mothership. And like you said, culture is hard to mimic, and we've always worried about creating a lot of different satellite places that we wouldn't potentially be able have that same culture at.
So what are you most proud of as you know, are a part of your family's rehab? What are you most proud of today?
Just helping people. We've helped, over 35,000 inpatients that have come through the doors since
Wow.
1975. So changed a lot of lives. This is a second career for me, and it's been extremely rewarding to be able to
Hmm.
work beside my dad for 5 years before his passing, and just continue the legacy that him and my grandparents started is just makes me proud every day.
Awesome. I would tell people when I was there, we would be, doing some rehab, and one of the technicians would come over and say, "Look, I finished up early. Is there anything that you guys need?" It's not hiding yourself and going and doing something else, but participating and helping others out. It was truly a unique team approach. I loved it. I was like, what the heck? I've never seen that happen. So I
You know,
guess it gets down to the culture that they see it happening every day, and it's easy to mimic because you're part of it. Is that
yeah,
just something you teach in your training and
it
what
starts at the
you do
top
with?
for us. It starts at the top for us, Pete. Our board of
Yep.
directors rounds before their board meetings. They'll round on the floors and they'll ask staff what's going well and what's not going well. And one of my favorite stories. One of our board of directors was asking an environmental services person several years ago who was in the room. He said, what do you do here? What are you doing here today? And he's mopping this patient's room, and his response was, I'm changing lives every day. So that's from environmental services to doctors. They're all part of the team.
Yep.
Their job is to help these patients get better.
There was a person, I knew his son, who reached out to me when I was at Shepherd, and he runs a kind of a support group that helps brain injuries, to have some additional, support and avenues. I wasn't aware, but I thought I'd just ask you, is there anything like that provides not so much rehab, but support for people that, have spent time at Shepherd?
Absolutely. So one of those 20 non-funded programs by insurance is our peer support program, and so we have spinal cord injury peer supporters and brain injury peer supporters. And in many of these, for spinal cord injury, it's patients that have actually had a spinal cord injury. And one of my favorite stories surrounding peer support is we have Pete Anziana, who's our current peer support manager. He was a patient here, and he was arguing with a therapist during his time here about a transfer and how he couldn't do it. And Mina Hong, the previous peer support manager, rolled into the gym and threw herself out of her wheelchair and did the transfer as the therapist was instructing. And sometimes it takes, you know, someone who's been through it. You're going to listen to them instead of an able-bodied person. Like you said, it's a valuable service to be able to talk to
Yes.
someone who's gone through it before and who really understands the journey you're going through, and it's a lot more impactful. So we have our staff that are peer supporters, but we also have volunteer peer supporters that come in and talk to patients, and they have a Facebook page, social media page where you can ask questions of them. In different communities, people will post things and get different answers from patients in those communities about their ideas and ways to support things that might be happening in their lives.
Yeah, it was real beneficial for me because I play golf, and I go from a very active lifestyle, independent, then all of a sudden overnight you're dependent and you're inactive. So you're trying to go, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to be inactive?
Yep.
So the gentleman that was in the group, I was playing alternative golf, and we were playing. And I said, "Tell me how long did it take you before you were playing 18 holes?" And he said, "It took me a year." And I went, "Holy mackerel, a year?" I said, "Oh man." I didn't think that it was going to be that long, but it helped me to adjust my expectations because the worst thing is you have expectations you're going to be back on the golf course in 3 months, and all of a sudden 3 months you're not even close. But I was able to adjust by talking to this person, and he was at Shepherd 15 years ago, so he shared with me his story, which helped me to really understand that it's a slow process. There's nothing fast about rehab, at least stroke rehab, maybe. So, yeah, that was really, really good. So, what would you say? What are the needs of Shepherd today? I mean, is there any needs that you say, man, if I had a magic wand, I would be able to do this?
Definitely staffing and being able to be able to consistently combat the staffing battle. And inflation's wreaking havoc with all businesses. It's we can't, our costs go up, but our reimbursement is we're very limited in the amount of increase we can get from our contracts. So just because
Okay.
our costs go up by 10% doesn't mean we can increase our prices by 10%. So it's always a challenging
Hmm.
situation.
So I guess it helps if you got a little bit of money, because people don't work for free.
They do not.
Even though I think some of them that I ran into, I think they would, because they enjoy so much. And the team that I was on, I know I'm a little biased towards them. They were the best. I mean, um, Becca, who's out on paternity leave, and Emily, and um, Jen, and then Sydney. Man, they bent over backwards to help you and make you feel so special. So that's what I mean. I tell people all the time that, hey, I was at Shepherd, and then we'll talk and I'll share that experience, and they're kind of like, yeah, I've heard that they're really good. So, man, you've impacted a lot of people, so your reputation is out there, and it's a really good one. Because in healthcare, I had a friend that I interviewed, and he was with the Georgia Healthcare Association, and he just said it's hard providing good personal care in today's healthcare market because of all the challenges that you have. So, my hat's off to you for continuing to keep Shepherd in such a positive light, because you definitely have it. So, if anybody, I failed to mention, if you're listening, and I can see there are a bunch of people, if you, in the comment section of LinkedIn or Facebook, if you want to post a question for Jamie, that's where you'd put a question, and we can answer it on. We only have a few more minutes, but I sometimes I'll I usually say that at the beginning. So Jamie, what do you do when you're not working at Shepherd? What do you like to do for fun?
I have four young children, so I spend most of my time with them. But definitely enjoy sporting events with the kids and without them, and avid outdoorsman as well. So love being outdoors.
Awesome. Do y'all ever have like a charity golf event?
We have several events. We have a golf event every year. We have a black tie dinner every year.
Mhm.
We have a Kentucky Derby party called Derby Day every year. That's celebrates the Kentucky Derby, and several other third party events throughout the year. So that's a
Awesome.
big part of our fundraising or our events.
That's awesome. Well, I'll have to sign up for the golf,
We would
even
love to have
though
you out there, Pete.
yeah, my one arm, I didn't think you could play with one arm and swing with one arm, but it's not bad. You don't hit it far, so you don't lose golf balls, but you definitely can hit the ball. And I played 4 or 5 times a week before, I had my stroke, so I was out there all the time. So, if anybody wants to know more about any of those events, would I assume that it's on your website?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So I'll put the website up there again. So you can go to the website if you want to know more about any of the events that Shepherd conducts during the year. So that's awesome. Let me just, in our closing moments, okay. So any other thoughts, Jamie? So if you could give advice to a business or a healthcare professional, and you could say, hey, my experience here working and running Shepherd, here's what I would say. Could you give anybody any advice what you would tell them?
I think it's all about your people. They're your most important asset, and you need to treat them right and be respectful to them and treat them fairly. And you know, that's number one for us.
Awesome. I love it when people say it's the people, because I your people, your contact with others, and so congratulations on creating and continuing a superb culture at Shepherd, because so many people like myself, I mean, we don't sign up to go to Shepherd. It's not like, hey, I'm going to Shepherd. It's like you're all of a sudden you wake up and hey, you might be spending some time there. So thank you so much for what you do in our community of Atlanta, because we're kind of like privileged to have a company or a rehab facility like Shepherd, which has a national recommendation. Right here in our backyard. So thank you so much for what you do down there and how you serve the community.
Thank you, Pete. We
Before we
always say we don't want you to have to come here, but we're here if you need us.
Well, that's so true. I did read something that said top 10 um, rehab facilities. What's that kind of award?
So we're very very proud that for the last 2 decades plus we've been in the U.S. News and World Report's top 10. Last year we were number 7 in the country. That's the highest we've attained. And the other folks that are ahead of us and even behind us are big health systems and very well known health systems. So it's very humbling for little old not for profit private company like Shepherd to be listed amongst the giants like that from a national perspective. So something we're very very proud of.
Well, awesome. Congratulations on that. It's always good when you get recognized. You know you're doing a good job, but when others, in the industry recognize you, it's a nice pat on the back.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate your time and thanks so much for sharing, your journey with us and your involvement with Shepherd and what you're doing down there. We really appreciate everything you're doing down there. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate your support.
Oh, glad to. I'll be one of those guys that's always telling your story behind the scenes. A really good